Welcome to Adulting on the Spectrum, Episode 5. I am Andrew Comero, an autistic certified financial planner. I co-run Adulting on the Spectrum with Eileen Lamb.
Hey everyone, I'm Eileen Lamb. I'm an autistic author and photographer from France, though now I live in Austin, Texas, with my two boys who are also on the spectrum. In this podcast, we want to highlight real voices of autistic adults, not just inspirational story, but today I gotta say that our guest has a pretty inspirational story. You probably know him. His name is Dr. Carrie Magro, and Andrew is going to introduce him.
So Dr. Carrie Magro is an award-winning autistic professional speaker, best-selling author, and autism consultant to the HBO series Mrs. Fletcher that aired in fall 2019. He started professionally speaking 10 years ago via the National Speakers Association after he fell in love with theater as a child to help with his social and communication skills. Today, he has spoken at over 1,000 events during that time, include 2 TED Talks and a Talks at Google presentation. In addition, Carrie is CEO and president of KFM, Making a Difference, a nonprofit organization that holds inclusive events and has provided 86 scholarships for students with autism for college and housing since 2011. Not that I really care about disclaimers, but one of our employees at Plan Across Spectrum, Andrew Arbo, has been a previous recipient of Carrie's award. So we thank you in advance for that. Hi, nice. Carrie.
Yeah, awesome. What was his name again? One more time?
Andrew Arbo.
Okay, yeah, I remember Andrew.
Pretty unforgettable. Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me. This is really great to have the adult perspective because we don't hear enough about adults in our community. So glad to be here.
Hey, Carrie, thanks for being here. We always start by asking our guests how they like to identify themselves because we know some autistic adults like person with autism more than autistic person and vice versa. So how do you like to identify?
Carrie and autistic. I actually used to be called, I used to prefer a person with autism, and then I moved on to autistic.
How about pronouns? Do you have any preferences?
Oh, him, he.
Perfect. So, can you tell us a bit more about your autism journey when you were diagnosed? What was it like? Although I feel like a lot of the internet, you're one of the people who've shared some of their stories before. So also too, with some of the questions we ask, feel free to share things that have not been shared before. And as pointed out earlier, this is an Adulting on the Spectrum podcast. So we are allowed to curse. And if you don't like it, you can fuck off.
My question is, who adds the expletives, like the little beeps you hear later? That's always something I'm interested in. But no.
Wait, who said we're bleeping anything out? Okay, continue.
Fair enough. So my diagnosis came in 92. I was 4. I was diagnosed with PDD-NOS before the DSM-5 made it this umbrella diagnosis. And I didn't speak until I was 2.5. Didn't started speaking in complete sentences till I was 7. I had 15 years of occupational physical speech therapy. Got started on music and theater therapy a little bit later on because I was a big theater nerd. I was a big music nerd. I wanted to be the 6th member of the Backstreet Boys growing up and the next Larry Bird. So my 2 laser-focused key interests, autism key interests, were theater and basketball, and I turned it into a career in public speaking, and that's kind of what I've been doing today. I received my master's in strategic communications so I could pursue a full-time career in public speaking. Got my professional certification maybe a year after I started my master's, and I've been doing that for the past 10 years now. And it's been a dream. I never expected you could get paid to speak. And it was really cool just getting the first opportunities. And then 1,000 events later, getting to write a few books, getting to work on a nonprofit, and getting to work in the film and TV industry. It's a dream come true. And I'm blessed every single day.
You really have like such an inspirational story, It's pretty amazing to hear everything you've done. And I know I always say at the beginning of each of our episode, we try to highlight all the voices, but I feel like even though your story is so inspirational, it's so unique, and you're doing so much for the autism and autistic community, that I really wanted to, talk to you today. And speaking of, in April, you did a lot of talks, right? And that was about autism and employment. Can you tell us a bit more about your talks?
Yeah, sure. So most of my talks are in schools, but it was really amazing the past few years. We've gotten a lot of inquiries from businesses. A lot of businesses, as part of their diversity practices, have really been trying to do more. Actually, it was just announced that over 500 companies are taking part in disability inclusion, including the Apples and Googles of the world, making it really a big part of their mission statement, which I found really, really important, because when we talk about diversity, it feels like a lot of the time disability falls through the cracks, especially when we're talking to human resource departments. So I started blogging about my own personal perspectives of finding employment on the autism spectrum. And then later down the line, really getting into nuts and bolts from the human resource perspective, how to go about the onboarding process. And it really interested me. So now I get the opportunity to speak in businesses as part of Lunch and Learns, and then further conversations as part of internal just work with human resource departments on how we could go about hiring talented autistic people within the workplace today. So got it last April, we got to work with Lowe's, we got to work with Wyndham Worldwide Resorts, and many more businesses that it's the end of the day. So I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but it's been a treat, to say the least.
Yeah, that's I didn't know that about you, and that's interesting, because that's a large part of what I talk about from a different angle completely. But so no, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, I find
Yeah.
that businesses are just surprisingly receptive. On one hand, it's like, well, of course 500 businesses are saying they're inclusive, because what business is going to be like, no, I don't want to support people with disabilities. So it's also, but then there's ones that are doing more than just saying yes, right? There's the making your mission statement, and then there's making it like the true part of your core DNA as a company. And, I mean, obviously maybe not obviously at all, but any steps in forward momentum, moving direction, I consider a very positive thing. And what I've found is, if you're involved in a company and they're not, yelling and screaming at them really usually doesn't work, although it can be fun at the time. But, just asking, like the Financial Planning Association, they were talking about diversity and inclusion. And I said, well, what about neurodiversity? And they said, oh, okay, what about it? Let's talk. And so now they have Neurodiversity Inclusion Initiative led by me. So also be careful of what you say. Otherwise, people may be a little more open than you might anticipate.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
thank you.
And that's it's just so important, because there are some groups I know who say that they donate to an autism charity once a year. They host a World Autism Awareness Day event, and then all of a sudden they are this autism friendly business. And I just think to myself, it's like, that's great and all, but that's like the whole like autism awareness versus autism acceptance debate. You have the little bit of awareness. Now, what are you doing to accept, embrace, and understand? So that's why I talk about the onboarding. Do one-day job training versus interview process, for example. Go ahead.
And every step in the right direction. Like, there's plenty of people talking about the interview process. So to take the step that you can know about in that first day, I talk about the employee benefits. Like, if we could all make a little bit of a difference. But I'm going to pick on you because you brought it up. So, but should we attack those businesses that are giving some money to autism? And should we attack them for who they're donating to, so then they turn around and give money to nobody anymore? Or what are your thoughts on that? And again, speak freely.
It's never an attack. It's honestly, it's the first step of a conversation. I mean,
Oh no, I'm not saying you. I'm saying I'm.
oh yeah, no. I know what you mean, but I, I, I definitely feel from the perspective of these businesses. I mean, obviously, most of the time it comes from a personal connection. One of the employees has a son or daughter who's on the spectrum. That's what I've seen like 95% of the time. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's great and all, but if you have senior leaders involved in your company who are on board with this, you should be really able to do much more than just writing a tax deductible donation to a nonprofit and just calling it, your group is autism friendly,
No, I think, even though it's true that some companies, they use the autism awareness as they do that and then it's all over. But I also think that a lot of them, it comes from a place of like wanting to do something good, and then they see the reactions. Like we saw that a lot in April this year. Like they post about it, like they want to raise money, and then they use the wrong symbol for autism, and they have so many angry people coming at them, telling them they're like eugenics, eugenic. I can't even say that word.
You're good. It happens.
Ableist, all of that. I can write them very well though. And then it makes it that all the other companies are kind of like afraid to even like take a stance on autism and talk about it, if because there is so much controversy in the autism world, and when they try and do something good, because I love the expression progress, not perfection. I think we should encourage companies, even if it's just a one-off, just assume that they have good intention and that it's not just for a tax write-off, But yeah, I can see both perspectives. It's interesting.
Yeah. I love what you said about the whole puzzle, the symbol, because I saw that a ton during April, during the month. I feel like, and I think you posted on your Facebook page at the Autism Cafe. Shameless plug for you. You mentioned I think it was like, regardless if you want to light up blue or light up red, it's like, why are we having these conversations when our goal universally should be progress for our community? And the bickering kind of deters from us being able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a guest, Tara Cunningham, former CEO of Specialist during the Autism at Work initiatives that all the major companies do. And what she said is, when we got to the the executives in the key departments, they were all in, but they were just afraid of getting the message wrong, and they said no. So speaking of the employment piece that you're working on, right? Being kind everywhere, it affects everything. So why do you think that you deserve to replace Ellen? I did see that just recently. And so now, and also, would you want to replace Ellen? Were you joking? And a very serious question to follow up. So it's a two-parter, and it's, as a professional, I always want to be known for being a financial planner who happens to have autism, right? So I'll use Temple Grandin as an example. She had said, that she wants to be, her researcher first, right? The autism second. The autism makes her good at what she does. But similarly, I would never want somebody to work with me and do business with me. I'm going to call it pity. That's probably over an exaggeration because of the autism. But in general, why do you think you should be the next Ellen? So your haircut is pretty similar, but other than that, I don't see a lot of similarities.
Ellen is more like down. Mine is more like slicked up. Mine is more slicked up though. No, I was working on a talk show in my local area, which aired just on local TV on Comcast for several years, and each individual we highlighted had a disability, and that was kind of the premise of our show. It was called the Different is Beautiful show, because we see so many people with differences, and we truly believe that we should be celebrating differences and that many differences are indeed beautiful. So when we started that, we were kind of like on the perspective after the show ended and we just decided to close it down. I started a video series where we started highlighting self-advocates everywhere I went to go speak and posting them on our Facebook page. So Carrie's autism journey, where we had the opportunity to highlight so many different self-advocacy stories. And by following Ellen's career, I have seen her give back to so many individuals and do similar things in terms of celebrating differences. I remember years ago when Tyler Clemente, a 18-year-old boy who is gay, committed suicide. And Ellen did this whole big thing because she is also gay. She mentioned a little bit about how it's important we talk about lessons, actual lesson plans in compassion for others. And that's where I see I think I see a few similarities between me and Ellen. I am not a good dancer like Ellen. I sometimes don't tell the best jokes compared to hers. I sometimes get a lot of crickets. But from the perspective of just celebrating differences, I think that's why NBC Universal should consider me. But also at the same time, I know it's probably far-fetched, it won't happen, but I figured you don't lose out by trying.
I love that. You absolutely don't lose out by trying. So
yeah, I think that's so great that you're just putting it out there, because you know what, who knows, and having an autistic person replace Ellen, I mean, how amazing would that be? And I like you, so even better. I wouldn't take any random autistic. Anyway, on to our next question about another show, actually, TV. Let's talk about Elon Musk. What do you think about his coming out, if we can call it a coming out? And second part of the question, like, did you see all the controversy around him saying that he has Asperger's syndrome instead of saying he's autistic? And what do you think about that?
I think it's interesting because it reminded me of Dan Aykroyd, because Dan Aykroyd came out about having Asperger's like 5 years ago. And it was kind of in the same realm of the DSM-5 was just coming out. And I was kind of like, well, Asperger's is not a diagnosis anymore. So what
in the United States, it's not anymore.
In the United States. Yes, true. But, I was kind of thinking about that. And I was thinking, I mean, these individuals may have gone and received a diagnosis and just have never disclosed that they have a diagnosis. So I was kind of thinking on that line. It was fine if he identified himself as Asperger's, if he received that diagnosis at the time and just came out about it. It would have just been nice from a clarification standpoint to say, like, I received this diagnosis then. I know it could have opened more like, well, why haven't you talked about it since SNL, Saturday Night Live? But I did appreciate from the standpoint of him just saying he's the first openly autistic. I mean, Dan Aykroyd hosted the show. He has autism. I appreciate it. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Elon Musk in the world and some of his decision making. However, I think from the perspective of hopefully opening doors for more people in our autism community, this will lead to better opportunities to understand the talented people who, if you give them a chance within your company, you just don't know. You might have the next Elon Musk within your organization. Granted, we have to say that autism is a spectrum. However, some of my mentees right now are just some of the most brilliant kids I've ever met. So
thank you for that. That's a good perspective. So
do you share that perspective, or is that new to you?
What? I don't know. It was a generic bullshit comment that I was just kind of like moving the conversation along. No, I mean, no, actually, no. In all seriousness, I think, so yeah, when Dan Aykroyd did it, he wasn't at the time. I think Elon Musk was just trying to be funny, right? And I think he had no idea what he was doing. Like, and it's funny too, because like there's, you know, if you do 2% of the population has autism, if you do that, about 50% have an intellectual disability. And we're not saying that excludes anyone from success or anything, but they're it is separate, right? And so then if you do some quick math, that means there's 3 million people in the United States with autism and without ID, 2%, right? The quick math.
Yep.
And then you realize, oh, wait, maybe there's 100 people on the internet who hate it. What about the other, millions, literally millions of adults out there who around, and that's why we're having this, podcast too, is to highlight some of the, other voices, and, differences of opinion should be celebrated, right? Or at least understand where somebody's coming from, or just even listen. That doesn't mean you have to agree. So that was a little bit of a rant. So anyway.
No, I appreciate that. It's like we all identify in the way that we identify. I mean, Eileen had another great quote on the Autism Cafe. It was like, every single person is the, every autistic person is the expert in their own autism. I think that's what it was. And I thought that was great. It's like, well, we're all individuals, and that's kind of, don't just read a book to learn about autism, learn by getting to know people who have autism, but you have to know it's that every single individual is going to be unique.
How has it been? How have you seen the evolution? You've been doing this longer than me. You've been doing this longer than Eileen. You've worked with Autism Speaks going back so many years, and you've seen changes over time, and you've just been an advocate for so long. What would you like to share that you wish people would ask you, or that you wish you could get to talk about, but you kind of have to, walk that fine line of, not pissing off the autism community, which is almost impossible at this point, or also trying to advocate and do good things? How has your perception changed over time, and how do you feel about it now?
It's a really excellent question. That's, it's funny because it's like sometimes I post things online and then I just get so many trolls, and I just think to myself, it's like, am I going to keep this up? It's like, can I stand that my allies in the community are getting bullied by trolls as well? It's not only my voice, but it's also the voices of others trying to stand up for me. And it's like, what should I do in these situations? It's a very, Facebook and other social media platforms can be very toxic. I mean, everyone knows that by now, but I honestly just try to keep to my journey as much as possible and come in with that first hand perspective versus try to say I'm like an expert in ABA. I never received any ABA. And even though I know people have ABA, they would be much better equipped to have these conversations than I would. So I really just try to keep it like close to the heart when I'm doing posts, when I'm doing speeches, when it doesn't mean that I'm like a one character. It's like I do a lot of research on things such as picky eating, because I used to picky eat when I was a kid, and now it's like I want to write a book on picky eating because I know it's a big topic within the autism community. So often I just try to stay away from topics that are focused on things such as the ABAs of the world, the vaccines of the world, because I know I can't win. It's like
but even more importantly, you just admitted that you didn't understand it, which that's not just not winning. So like I saw a reshare where somebody was coming after ABA, and I'm in a similar boat with you, Carrie. I don't have a child who's received ABA. I've never received ABA. I don't feel that confident enough about it. But I saw someone share that, any treatment for people with autism should be individualized, and therefore that, ABA should never be included. And I think the one thing I know about ABA is it's probably the most individualized treatment there is. So this was a popular social media personality. And to me, that just validated, you don't know what you're talking about. You should probably not hate it. At least I know that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And it's like, it is one-on-one too. And it's like, there's so many people who are like, ABA causes PTSD, when I know for a fact that some of those individuals have never had ABA. And I'm like, so yes, you're listening to a perspective, which you may believe is true. However, I mean, I feel like that's like the popular thing people like to say about ABA right now. It's not a great perspective, in my opinion, because it is one-on-one, and reformed ABA is much different compared to what the, and I don't want to say this stuff online because I'm not an expert in it at all, but based on the history of ABA versus ABA now, there have been a lot of positive advancements. So.
I mean, just because something shares the same name doesn't mean it's the same, right? Like the Republican Party freed the slaves and gave women the right to vote. I don't think anyone can say that that sounds like the Republican Party that exists today, but their name remains the same. So
I had no idea. That's really cool fact. Thanks, Andrew.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I love sample facts.
But seriously, about the, it's so good how both of you can say that, well, you know what, I don't know much about ABA, and that's okay. I'm not going to take a stance, because so many people are speaking as if they've seen ABA or experienced it, when all they know of ABA is what they see and hear online. I posted a video about ABA showing what it's actually like right now in 2021. Which was basically the therapist like letting Charlie, my oldest son, just like steam in front of a video, hand flapping, so happy while he was learning about number, learning to communicate with an iPad, and then them preventing him from running in the street. That was the video, very short, and people in the comments were like, yeah, but that's not ABA though. Like, well, yeah, it is. It's just ABA is not abusive. So just because it doesn't fit your definition of like ABA being abusive doesn't mean it's not ABA. And that's why it's so important, I think, that people put it, I mean, it's never going to happen, but put a disclaimer. I've never experienced ABA. This is my opinion because of things I've read online, or just don't talk about it like you do, Carrie. You can't really, you don't know, so you don't talk about it. And that's great. And I think that's how it should be. Or if you want to talk about it, just make sure you say that you've never experienced it or seen it and that you're not an expert.
I agree. I feel like that's a huge caveat that people need to say. It's like, I can talk about it, but I've never had that first person.
So a question just on the bullies that you mentioned, and this one is a little bit different from an advocacy point of view. So you work a lot with students, right? And again, you have the great scholarship. I thank you for that in advance. I think when one of my good friends and employees got it, he wasn't really working for me full time, but I'd never been through the education process myself, knowing I had autism, but also working more with adults, not as much parents. Have you noticed that it seems everyone's a little defensive lately? What I mean by that is there's the nothing about us without us. But I feel, and maybe this is me, I'm just asking my silo, given you have such a good reputation for being kind and work with a lot of parents, that they're almost getting afraid of when I say I'm an autistic adult and here's my opinion. And no matter how kind it is, there's this, it seems to be recently over the past month or so, where there's this wall up and this defensiveness because they're so afraid of being attacked. Me and a woman got in a disagreement on Facebook, And I went to message her about it. And I realized she had stood up for me a couple months ago with something I had said. I was very short autistic answer or something, and somebody took it the wrong way. And she stood up for me, and I had thanked her, and she's listened to me talk and knows me. But even us, we were just so, and I'm like, what are we doing here? We like each other. We know each other have good intentions. Like, why, why are we so on edge? Have you experienced that?
I've experienced that for years, but it's also from working at Autism Speaks. I was often considered the quote unquote token. So anytime, like one of the only people, and there would be actually autistic people who would come to my Facebook page, and they would bully. They would say I was a sellout. They would say that I was a Nazi supremacist, believing in eugenics for everyone with autism, and that autism needed to be cured. And people would stand up for me. Most of the time, it was parents. And there would just be parents who, after a while, would just be scared to ever post or comment on my Facebook page because they would be worried about getting not only commented on, but also private messaged. I mean, that's really scary, having people who you don't even know private messaging you and calling you hateful words and even threatening people at sometimes. I mean, it's so not what this community should be about. We all have different opinions on different things, but once we get to the point where bullying is involved, that's when it needs to stop. There's nothing wrong with being constructive. And honestly, that's why I'm an anti-bullying activist today. It's because we see a lot of this, not only in the schools where I do most of my speaking engagements, but also in the autism community as well.
Yeah, I've had that happen too, where my followers, comment something in support of me, and then some people will private message them and insult them, and a lot of the time it's people who are not very familiar with this. I feel like the three of us, we know this world, we know that can happen, but when it's just a parent on Facebook looking for support, it's just it's hard for them, and then they get scared. They don't have the thick skin and experience to handle it, and I just really don't like that. But what do you think makes a good autism advocate? How can we do better despite our differences?
It really is time for more people to just have that opening ear and just to listen to other perspectives. And if they don't agree, say why they don't agree, but just have facts to back it up. Don't be a bully. Don't name call. Just be constructive. I think that's at the heart of autism advocacy. I think the other perspective is, if you're calling yourself an autism advocate, it starts at awareness, and we talk about this all the time, but at the end of the day, it's like Stephen Short, half of Stephen Short's life, I say in like quotes in speaking engagements, it's like it's all about the 4 A's. It's all about that acceptance. It's all about action. It's more than just posting, going to, granted, I was a 8-year Autism Speaks walker. It's more than just going to a walk. It's really about trying to do the best for the community and the whole acceptance and inclusion perspective.
And I think I posted about this yesterday. Real advocacy is so boring and so slow. I mean, you run a nonprofit, right? And you do good work. So, and it's a little, but being even involved with larger ones, or I spent a lot of today on a state committee for the, autism waiver for Medicaid in Connecticut, and trying to move the ball, in any direction and make any progress. And it's have to celebrate some real progress. And I mean, ABA isn't real torture, right? Advocating with the federal government. I mean, that feels like torture sometimes, right? You know, just how slow they move and just trying to, you know, yelling and screaming doesn't work there. Well, you know, let's say it doesn't.
Yeah, no, it's true. But also from that perspective, I mean, we got autism insurance reform in all 50 states. And then I realized that.
Don't you mean ABA torture endorsement insurance in all 50 states, for the record?
Well, the thing is, a lot of states don't have the ABA even. Whatever, that was a good way of putting it, from the actually autistic community most of the time. But it is the occupational therapy, it is the speech therapy, which is often covered, and most states like are divided about whether or not they should put ABA in. And then you get a lot of actually autistic people who say it isn't, and then it kind of hurts a lot of families receiving that one-on-one treatment. So it depends where you live too.
And they're trying to make it that Medicaid doesn't cover ABA in Texas. And that's going to affect so many families. And this is where I'm really annoyed, because once these people, and yeah, when I said they, I mean actually autistic, try to get services taken away from kids who really need it and benefit from it, it's sad. You know, it's one thing if it didn't work out for them, but it's worked out for so many people. You know how people leave bad reviews only when they, I mean, not only, but most often when they have a bad experience at a restaurant. It's kind of like the same with ABA. Like the people who had a great experience, I mean, they talk about it online, but they're not like so vocal about it that they go and they attack everyone who talks about ABA. And I feel like this is something people need to realize. People are going to talk about ABA if they're against it, but not as much if they're in favor of ABA. And most people who received ABA are in favor of it. Anyway, I feel like it doesn't hurt anyone if Medicaid covers ABA. It can still be a parent choice. The actually autistic can still do their advocacy on their side against ABA if they want, but at least for the people who choose ABA, it will be covered for them. Like that's where I stand. It can still be a choice, but if they get it, not covered, then it's not a choice for certain families. They won't be able to afford it. So, yeah.
Well, I think some of that just comes down to money at the end of the day. I mean, the AB and I see Andrew nodding his head, and he obviously knows this from the financial perspective. But even private insurers, it's so hard at times to even get them to cover even the typical physical occupational speech therapy, let alone ABA. And then when we actually try to get reform passed to actually cover ABA, it's really, really difficult, because then they could throw in the actually autistic perspective when they're really just trying to save a couple of dollars.
Yeah, so exactly. An analogy that may only make sense to me is, do you guys know the Sierra Club? Like, I'm going to, okay, tree huggers. Or sorry, okay. Does anyone know the Sierra? Does anyone know the Sierra Club? Like the environmental, almost radical group. And one of the very interesting things that's happened is they're very much against nuclear power, which Eileen's from France. So they actually have a surplus, right? They're probably the cleanest country there is as far as carbon emissions. So they're advocating to shut down nuclear power, more of a myth. And we're replacing emission-free energy with natural gas. And I can see everyone's bored, but okay. But in fairness, they're working with the allies, or they don't understand that they're like, that the natural gas isn't cleaner. It's kind of using the advocates and their power to advocate, against them. Oh, the Sierra Club, that's environmentally, clean, it wants to do this. It must be a good thing. And it's funded by the natural gas industry. To me, I saw an analogy there, but
yeah, maybe.
It's only me, so we'll delete that. Okay.
Or not.
No, I understand. I understand tree huggers. I do. My parents were tree huggers, so that's
Oh,
yeah. We could go into a whole long conversation about that.
do you have any
Anyway.
trauma from that?
I had trauma from so many things.
Next podcast.
Next
Yes.
podcast. Yes, the sequel / remix for this. I'm down.
So, well, I was going to say nothing could be as good as the original, but when it comes to music, the version Cake did, the cover of I Will Survive, is 10 times better than the original. I will take that to my grave, that Cake did I Will Survive better than
Oh my God. No, you can
Yes.
never say that. That's
no,
the
it's
music that
true.
played when France won the soccer world
Have you heard
in
the Cake
1998.
version? Have you heard the Cake
No,
version?
I don't care. It will never be as good. You already did.
I need to go check it out now. Because I love that. Like I love old like 1970s. Like that was probably even before 1970s. No, that was 1970s, 1980s.
Exactly. It's a crime to do a remix
No
of
Mount,
that.
Not Enough. I mean, man, that's my
We
Yeah,
will play that song at the end of the episode, so everyone just stay tuned until the end. Okay.
Oh yeah, let me edit that in. Anyway, it's time to wrap up our podcast with some quick fire questions. So it's very easy. We give you a quick question and you answer the first answer that comes to your mind.
Cool.
Ready?
Yep.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
This is so funny. You said the first thing that came to my mind. The first thing that came to my mind is put down the phone and be present.
Oh, that is such great advice, actually. What do you like to do to relax?
Music, beach.
What's your favorite food?
Ooh, I love dumplings. I can't go wrong with pizza. Can't go wrong with chicken.
You
Honestly,
don't eat pizza?
Italian is my way to go. Like anything Italian. So pasta, pizza, anything carbs.
What is your favorite film?
The first thing that came to my head was Joyful Noise because it was the first film I worked on. And that's just a shameless plug, though. But that was the first thing that came to my mind. It's not the best movie in the world, though. And the director of the movie would kill me if he sees this podcast. My favorite film, though,
for saying that it's not the best, or for saying it's your favorite film? Which one?
No,
would you be upset with?
Saying it was not the best.
Okay.
The Matrix definitely has a special place in my heart.
Why the Matrix? Like what about it?
I think it was also the same time I was learning about my autism diagnosis, and I felt like it was pretty cool that there was a unique world that was outside of the current world that we were living in, because I felt very quirky as a kid. And when I was learning about my diagnosis, it's like my parents took me to that movie just a few months after they told me about my autism diagnosis at like 10 and a half. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of similarities here. It's like, I wish I could go to like the Matrix and like see the whole like new like world outside the Matrix as well.
That's cool. Since you are autistic, and therefore like Rain Man. Thanks, Andrew. Andrew likes to add a little bit of information to the question I'm supposed to ask you. So since you're autistic and therefore like Rain Man, how much have you won playing Blackjack?
Honestly, I mention it almost in every talk that there's such a Rain Man stereotypical, and then it's a good doctor now. I'm great at Blackjack. I'm like very, very, I have won. Overall, it's like every other like slots, it's like I've lost money. Roulette, I've lost money. I don't have a problem. I'm just throwing that out there just before I go into this soliloquy. I've won a little bit over $4,000 on blackjack over my life.
Well, blackjack is a game of skill, and slots or not. How about poker? Did you know Eileen was a professional poker player?
Really?
That's true. Yeah.
Oh my God! No way! That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm good at Texas Hold'em. I'm terrible at every other.
Me too.
Well, there's no other type of poker. I mean, I'll take that one to my grave too, right? There's only one. One of our favorites at the casino is the bonus Texas Hold'em. It's like poker meets blackjack against the dealer, and it's really fun. We should go, Eileen. We should meet in New Jersey or Connecticut, and
I'm in.
I'm down.
Yeah,
New normal. Let's do it.
Autistic playing poker and blackjack. That is so cliche. Anyway,
it is. But we don't look autistic, right?
did we? I think Andrew does with this backdrop.
wait, I
What
do
is
or
it?
don't?
No, you do. That's
Okay, good.
backdrop. New
It's
York
the Wall
Stock
Street.
Exchange.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, we're borderline cliche there, but anyway.
All right.
So,
Well, thanks for coming today. That was so great
Thank
to talk to you.
Yeah,
Is
thanks so
there
much.
anything else you want to say? Anywhere people can find you online? Anything you want to advertise? This is your moment. Tell everyone.
Yeah, no, definitely check out my Facebook page, Carrie's Autism Journey. If you're interested in having me speak at your next event, to your group or school, you can find my website, carriemagro.com, and shoot me just a contact form. My books are Defining Autism from the Heart, Autism and Falling in Love, and I Will Light It Up Blue. They're all available to purchase on Amazon and on my website, carriemagro.com. Definitely check out the films that I've worked on, which is also available on my website. And I'm on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, all social media channels. So give me a follow if you can. I'm excited to see you.
I think your TikTok is taken off from what I saw, right?
Yeah, we blew it up. It was so crazy. It's like I went off TikTok because nobody was like really liking any of my videos and I was feeling defeated. And then I came back on like the last week of January 2021, and I posted one video like a week later and I got 1.3 million views. And that got me 30,000 followers right away. And now we're up to 48.5. So slowly tiptoeing to the Addison Rae TikTok legend, 80.5 million. So maybe one day.
Getting there. And that was it. Awesome. Well, thank you.